Howdy YouTube, I got a new type of video for you today, and it's a little bit dangerous of a video. There's a little bit at risk here because we're going to talk about some touchy subjects, but there's been a lot of misinformation out there, and one of my 3 mission statements for the channel was to kind of show people how my faith interacts with my horse training. So I'm here with a good friend of mine today, Jason Forby. He is a cutting horse trainer, is that right?
Yeah, among others.
Among others. Yeah. Cowboying is more his style than what I do. But he also happens to be who I claim is my preacher. So there's churches all over the world, and this one's in Southern Illinois, the Southern Range Cowboy Church.
Southern Range Cowboy Church.
Yeah. Southern Range Cowboy Church. You can find them on Facebook, find them on YouTube. Yeah. Jason Forby's his name.
Cowboy Logic is.
Cowboy Logic?
Cowboy Logic, that's the name of the, I guess you'd call it podcast.
Oh, yeah, I just found that, yeah.
Yeah, it's on
the... Podbean or something like that?
Yeah, it's on the YouTube.
Yeah,
and
we'll see if we can
everywhere.
Put a link to it so people can find
Cowboy
it.
Logic.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. At least once a year, Emery and I come out here to get to go to Jason's church, and we went there last night. So every time I mention church, faith, or pray on a YouTube channel, people start clicking off. So don't do that. Challenge yourselves a little bit, because we're not going to tell you how it is or the right way. We're going to show you what works for us and how we do it, and you can take from that what you will, and what you don't, just leave it. There's got to be some truth in it, because we're 2 different disciplines and we find results the same way.
Yeah, I would say before somebody clicks off, I would say the stigmatism of even what you would call me a preacher, or say you go to my church or any of that, I guess we have to use those labels to classify it in some way where people know what you're talking about, really, but we really don't fit into that. What we live and believe in is way different than what church or Christianity or any of that. It's really a journey to know God and know God's creation outside of religious bounds. And when you get outside of religious bounds, you find out that God is awesome, and it's life-changing, and the power of love, and just how it changes us, and then affects everything that we touch, dogs, horses, all of creation, really.
That's a good point. And with my viewership, you got to think half of them are not believers and half of them are believers. Well, the half that aren't believers are almost more open to hearing my opinions and taking them as opinions than the religious half, because believe it or not, you would think 2 Midwesterners and 2 kind of rednecks, if you don't mind the moniker, I'm a redneck, we're probably the most liberal, open, loving church group you can find. There's no condemnation. I was a Christian for 10 years before I got baptized when I met him, and I wouldn't let myself get baptized because I always had condemnation for myself or for others even. Sometimes it was the preacher that I didn't think measured up, and I wouldn't get baptized until I found out the message that Jason preaches, which is, grace. It's a grace message. Well, that grace message can make religious people mad too, and then they'll shut off. But this is a horse training channel, so I really want to get into the aspects of grace that apply to horses. And if you're agnostic or an atheist, there's still, almost everybody still has some self-identity, because they can feel in them that there's something more than just flesh and bones. That we got a mind and we got a soul. The state of mind, your mental health, your attitude for the day really affects how you're training a young horse. Like the last time I got bucked off a horse was last March, and it was an outside horse I was riding for a customer. They showed up that day, wanted to see their horse ride. I had just gotten in a fight with my 18-year-old daughter, and I told the man, I said, ooh, I shouldn't even ride right now on a young, she was a pretty fiery horse too, because my mentality and my spirit was not where it should have been. And sure enough, she was like a tuning fork to that, amplified it and gave it back to me, and I ended up on the ground. Broke a rib.
Well, Well, them horses are, they're actually a mirror. Part of the secret to what I do is if they just come here and be here, they become like me. And so if you're, regardless of what you believe as far as faith or any of that goes, who you are as a person, what your heart is full of, that horse is going to portray that back to you. If you're full of fear, whatever, anger, like you said, your life is all bound up and up in the air and all that, horse is just going to become like you. So I'm kind of a boring level guy. I'm not emotional, I'm not reactive, I'm just boring. And so that portrays to my colts to where they just become confident and non-reactive and not emotional, not dead, but they just become a mirror of what you have going on inside. And so normally if I'm having a problem with a horse, it's not the horse.
Yeah.
It's a reflection, so I can say, hey, what do I got going on here, And so for a man to really be free in his heart, because regardless of what you believe, I don't care if you sit in church every day, I don't care if you got a fish on your car and whatever. If you have stuff in your heart, you're not free. If you don't understand what love really is and how loved you are and have all that going for you, then your heart's not free, and your heart's having an effect on everything that you encounter every single day. And so I would say above anything else, however you got to get a free heart, because in that place everything around you is affected for the positive.
One of the lessons I've taught or reiterate on the channel is when you're stressed out and you're upset, that is not the time to go ride a 2-year-old. But now horses, they got two roles. They're there for your, when you get your 20-year-old horse out that's been a trusted ally for 18 years, and you're upset, they can be a medication to you. They can, because they're kind of like a gift from God, and they can help you and keep you help your sanity. But a 2-year-old's not that leader yet. You've got to be the leader. One of you've got to be the leader at all times, and it needs to be the trainer. Being a leader, another hot topic is discipline. And people will hear discipline, or even the bigger buzzword that really gets people mad at me is when I talk about dominion. Because people that haven't heard a message about dominion hear the root word in there is like dominate. They equate dominion with dominate, and it couldn't be further from the truth. They have nothing to do with each other. I've been trying to find a good way to talk about the dominion that we have over horses where it doesn't make them sound like a slave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say a better word for that in my mind would be manager. Like a horse is a herd animal. A horse wants to be a part of a community. A horse in a herd will have, a leader in the herd. And I know, I get it, it's a sensitive thing. People don't, like discipline necessarily, and I don't know if that's the right word or not, but if you go out in the wild and you watch a herd of horses, there's a boss, usually a mare. And if colts are acting unruly or whatever, they're going to get walked or put in line, or they're biting each other and kicking each other and everything else. And I'm not saying that we do that necessarily, but a horse comes here, they're actually looking for someone that is capable enough to be the leader. They're a herd animal. They want someone. So anytime a horse comes in your possession or in your place here, whatever, it's like that horse maybe in its entire life has not found someone to be a trustworthy leader. And so the minute they find that, it's like putty in your hands. They want leadership.
Yeah.
They want someone to be managing things. They're not designed to be leaders. They're designed to be a herd. And so when they find someone that's confident enough and capable enough, they'll give you their life. They'll give you everything. It's like, my philosophy would be, can you expose a colt to everything that it's ever going to be encountered in life? No, you can't prepare them for everything, but I can put them in the place of okay, they trust me and I'm the leader. And if Jason's not freaking out, then there must not be a reason to freak out, so I'm not going to freak out. If Jason freaks out, then they have every right to, you know, if there's a bear after us and Jason's heart rate's elevated and we think, whoa, man, this is not too good, then by all means, elevate your heart rate and let's get the heck out of Dodge, you know. But if a Walmart sack blows by and you know, the colt wants to be terrified of that, they're going to check their leader, and the leader's heart rate hasn't changed. And the leader's not freaking out about it. So then they're like, oh, well, I guess it's nothing, you know, so there's no point in me freaking out.
Right. I did a poor job of showing that exact thing that you just said on a recent video where I built an obstacle course for my Clydesdale. And I've had a few, probably 100, 150 comments that said I should have walked him through and showed him each obstacle before I drove him through them. And I was trying to say, you don't need to just desensitize your horse, you need to be a leader for your horse. I wouldn't have built all the obstacles if I was going to show him them all first and get him used to them all. It defeats the purpose. What I was wanting was a controlled environment for a real life scenario when you're at the Christmas parade and you have to pass the motorcycles, or when you're at, you know, going down the highway and there's a construction zone with your horse. I wanted him to have faced it before, where he had to overcome and think through a problem and rely on my leadership to get him through it. And he did great. I give him an A- on how we got through that obstacle course the first time. But that was one of the points that was missed. What I was trying to portray is that you don't have to desensitize your horse to everything. You need to become a leader for your horse, and they'll follow that. The dominion part of it came from a sermon you gave in 2014 about Genesis 6, where we're in the creation story, where it was saying that we were made in his image and gave us dominion over every creeping thing. Without the spirituality part of it, that still puts you in the right mind frame to go out there and portray leadership. You know, because if you're thinking leadership, if you're thinking like you not only have the right but the authority to be that horse's leader, you're going to portray that, and they are like a tuning fork that can make you, you know, pick up on that vibe.
Have to be quieter, we can't hear you.
Yeah. So, transitioning from dominion, the next thing that I see a lot that I wanted to talk about with you and get your opinion on, I get a lot of comments about riding young horses, or my size being too big for a horse, or using a bit on a horse is wrong, and this, that, or the other is wrong. Where I have a hard time believing this narrative that's really being pushed now is because of what I see in a horse's intelligent design. I see that they're created for this life, and they're created to be a partner with us and a helper for us. And there's so much in their physical, I'm talking physical anatomy, not spirituality right now. I'm talking about the withers, the bit seat in the mouth, you know, between the masticators or the incisors and the molars. The way the foundation of a horse is built. I think it might have been you, I heard something about the like the way our anatomy complements a horse's anatomy. You know what I'm talking about there, or am I way off?
No, I mean, I would say their purpose. I mean, everything is designed for a purpose, and until your purpose is found, you'll misuse. You know, you're giving your life for a purpose, and if you don't know your purpose, you'll misuse your life. And so a horse has a purpose, and you know, a horse wants a job. A horse wants to work and do stuff for you and with you. You know, they're just created. I've been in horses my whole life, and a horse that has something to do and has a job is a happier horse than a horse that has nothing to do. You know, a horse with nothing to do or stress and trauma and all that stuff ends up cribbing, weaving, soundness problems, you know, no different than us. But yeah, I mean, a horse, you can't take some of these cow horses and ride to a cow for the first time and feel that horse come alive, and something just in him just craves to work a cow. Like, you know, he's the happiest when he gets to do that.
Right.
And so there's no other reason for that than for a cowboy and a horse to go work a cow, and it's just like a cat and a mouse. You know, it's part of their biology. It's part of their makeup. It's their purpose. And
Right. Well, yeah, and like you were saying before, that's where they're going to find that leader. If you're giving them a job, you're going to be the leader, and it's going to force the people interacting with the horses to become a leader, to become a better leader, because you're taking them in a direction. And that's a real language that they speak, is leadership, right? Or you know, pressure release. That's where they find their discipline. There's just a lot of wrong thinking out there about that. Like they think it's almost cruel, where I think it's more cruel not to give them that boundary, not to give them, you know, leadership and a goal, and to be trying to strive for the next best thing, because they get sedentary, and then they, without, hey,
y'all go somewhere
our
else.
peanut gallery is helping out in the video, but without that purpose, then they lose themselves, and they, you know, like you were talking about, that weaving, that's a mental disorder. That's not a physical disorder, and that comes from lack of direction in life and lack of boundaries and energy release.
You know, this kind of ties back to what you were talking about, the dominion part of it, but everything was created for a relationship, you know, and there's been a whole lot of relationships that are unhealthy, but everything was created for a relationship. And when relationship happens with two critters that have pure hearts, that have care for one another, that's a healthy thing. You can't go through life without relationship with something. You crave it, regardless of where somebody's at or what somebody's doing, it, you know, how hard they are, how hurt they've been. Everybody craves love. Winnie, be still. And so that kind of a healthy relationship is exactly the same as what we do with these horses. You know, it's like to give yourself to something else with the pure motive of, I'm not in this thing because of insecurities and trying to prove myself and all that selfishness, all that self-centeredness. When you can come into this thing in the right heart and in the right motive, and yourself is free and yourself is healed and yourself is understanding what love really is, then I don't need these horses to be a certain thing. I don't need them to respond a certain way. I just get to give myself to them. I get to live life with them and watch them become everything that they were designed and born to be, and watch them flourish and watch them become all that they were created to be, you know. And then the relationship happens, that now that horse thrives in that, and now that horse will give himself to me and do, you know, just do anything that I ask him to do. And it's not because, oh, I put a bit in his mouth, or I forced him into submission, or I did anything. No, none of that. It's like we have this relationship, that we have this mutual respect and appreciation for each other, and we do this thing called life together, and it's just a beautiful thing. And people that just kind of have that kind of thinking that you're talking about, they're missing the whole thing. And you know, I'm talking about 99% of people probably so far, but yeah, it's just an awesome thing to get to the place to where you don't need from someone else, but you can give and flourish in this thing called relationship that we all crave and that we've all messed up.
One of the things I want to talk about is mentors. There's no way you could do this and love horses as much as you do without having been introduced to them. For me, it was my grandpa that got me into the Foxtrotters. What were your...
Sorry.
You get bucked off a barrel, much less a horse. Who are your mentors?
Well, starting out, like growing up, so my mom, she was in the horse deal and trained. She was more in the dressage line, like English type, you know. And so when I was a kid, I'd rather play ball. We rode, and you know, it was part of Pony Club and all that good stuff. But once I got big enough, I had to wear them funny outfits, then I was kind of like, I lose interest. And so went and played ball, and then kind of high school got involved around the rodeo a little bit and cowboy lifestyle, and started riding bulls, and then some guys kind of wanted to pay me to ride some colts and stuff, and I thought, gosh, this is all right. This is better than a job, you know. And so not too long after high school, I went and worked for a couple different ranches down in Mississippi, and worked for guys and learned, and, you know, of course, have watched all kinds of guys. You know, nowadays you got all these clinicians and lots of people you can learn from. You can watch YouTube, and, you know, there's so much out there as far as horsemanship. And
no matter where you're at in your journey in life or in learning how to train horses, you need to be open-minded to mentors. So just because I do it with faith doesn't mean that y'all have to do it with faith. Just because I believe in the creation doesn't mean that I'm saying that everybody has to believe in the creation of horses, you know, with a divine purpose. But what I do want is for y'all to be open-minded enough to listen to what other people have to say, even if it's a viewpoint that you may not share now, and you can take from that what resonates within you, and the parts that you don't like, just leave it. But you don't have to be combative because somebody might pray over a horse and that might not be your style. Well, take the lesson from that and be like, oh, well, that might be like a meditation for them that puts them in the right state of mind. How I became a Christian, I was going to college wanting to become a veterinarian. Didn't believe in creation or anything, and a young man I was working with named Ben McBride bought me a Bible, and I decided to read it so I could argue with him about all the conflicts in the Bible, and you know, where it might contradict itself here or there, you know. And I'm like, oh, I'll get him, because I got good reader retention, you know. I can recall stuff if I read it one time. I was open-minded enough just to read it to argue with him, and then here I am 20 years later, and I'm a Christian, you know, believer. So I'm always ready to learn from somebody. You're in a completely different discipline than me, but when I watch you ride, I guarantee I'll pick up something that I'll apply to my discipline. One of the horse trainers I work with the most, Greg Gully, he's complete cowboy, reining horse, never has a hold of his horse's mouth, and his definition of collection is 180 degrees different than what a Foxtrotter's definition of collection is, but we still learn from each other, and it helps a lot. So.
There's something that could be said about the difference between, you know, what people's stigma is about, you know, why does somebody turn it off the minute somebody has some connection to faith or somehow? And I think it's because they associate that with people, you know, that they've encountered, or the way they think about what does that mean. And I think it's tied to, because religious people are so judgmental. So judgmental is a big turnoff to everybody. And you know, the thing that's different about us, that you're even asking people to be, because the people that are kind of anti-faith, that don't want anything to do with faith because of the people that are involved with faith, are actually being judgmental. And they don't want anything to do with it because the people could be judgmental, but they're actually being judgmental themselves, you know, about whether. And so the thing that differs us from typical religious or typical faith people is that we're not judgmental.
Yeah, it's so easy to say that though, but to be able to convey that to the people, like, I guarantee if I was going to bring a Muslim, a transgender, and a homosexual to a church where I could feel comfortable that they weren't going to get belittled or harassed, the only church I would bring them to is yours. You know, and every other church that would accept them and say, you know, you're welcome here, they would expect them to change. And if they didn't, they would think they were going to hell. And that's not how we believe. We believe that God came to save the world, and we don't believe he was not successful. So if your behavior influenced what he was able to achieve, then what did he really achieve? And that's the part that makes the people that are believers click off, is because they get judgmental too, and that if you're not being a believer the same way as them, they're going to click off for you talking about faith not in their way. And the people that aren't believers are going to click off out of fear of judgment and condemnation. It's a lot like training a horse right there. The horse will click out on you from fear just as quick as that.
I would say that my philosophy, if I had to sum it up in one statement, would be there's nobody, regardless if you're faith, if you're not faith, if you're brand new or whatever, there's really nobody that's honest at all that would say we all still don't need change. That we don't, there's none of us that have it all figured out. There's none of us that still don't have growing to do. So we all want change in some way or another. We all have things to work on. And so change would be the goal, regardless of what avenue you want. Change would be the goal. Some work, some don't work. Some you fool yourself into think they're working and they're not working. But if the goal would be change, I said it like this: the power for real change is found in the freedom that I don't have to. The power for real change, not fake, superficial, outward change. I'm talking about real change to where my core is completely different. That kind of change, the power for that kind of change is found in the freedom to not have to change. The minute I say, you don't have to change. I accept you just like you are. I love you just like you are. I accept you just like you are. I don't care if you, because this is the love of God. The love of God says, I love you at your very worst. And I'm just going to, I love you no matter what. You can't get out of it. You squirm all you want. My love in the maximum amount is here for you at all times. And regardless if you ever get any better, regardless if you quit this, quit that, start doing this, start doing that, quit hanging with those, all that, regardless of any of that, I'm still going to love you. When I found that kind of love contained the power for change to actually happen. You know, it's like, that's a scary thing for people to say, you know what, you come here, yeah, we got them now. You said you invite all those people to our, but we have them. I love them. I don't care if they change. I don't have an agenda to get them to change. The whole deal is just, let's get together and let's just love one another. I mean, Jesus said it. This is how the world's going to know that you know me, by the way that you love. Not by your programs, not by your way you dress or any of this nonsense that we've come up with. It's all about, man, just the power of love changes people.
Yeah.
By not expecting and demanding change.
I've had that. I've got a few homosexual trainer friends, and I've shared that message with them. And like, they've told me that I'm the first Christian that ever told them they were going to heaven whether they wanted to or not, and they didn't have to change who they are or who they loved. I said, how could it be wrong if you have love in your heart? It came from God. Well, other Christian religions will say, oh, that's not real love, that's fake, that's a lie. I don't see it in them. I know them. I feel love coming off of them, and I accept them just the way they are, and I think God does too, because I don't believe that we're held accounted for our sins, right? I think you said that last night in your message. You know, so.
Yeah, love takes no account of a wrong suffered. Love keeps no record of wrongs. So either God is love and he has a big list of all your right and wrongs, or he's actually love that the Bible describes and says that there's no record of wrongs kept, that he's cast his sins as far as the east is from the west. It's been thrown in the sea of forgetfulness. The whole term of the new covenant is, I remember their sins no more. Sin consciousness produces more sin. Love consciousness produces more love.
Yep.
Jesus said to the woman, you know, whoever's forgiven much loves much. Whoever's forgiven little love's little, you know. And so if we realize, man, everything, all of my ignorance has been erased, then like, whoa, I get a clean start, and it's like, man, that's really what love is. And now I'm in the position to grow and change and to get strength and to become something. And now I can love you. You know, whatever kind of love that you believe in is the kind of love that you have. And the kind of love that you have is the kind of love that you're loving with. So if I believe in conditional love, then I have conditional love, and I love with conditional love, which actually isn't love at all. But the kind of conditions that I believe that I'm being held to is the kind of conditions that I'll expect from you. So once I realize, you know what, there is no conditions to love. Zero conditions. It's just there. It's just love. And so now that's the kind of love that I have. And because that's the kind of love that I have, now that's the kind of love that I love with. And guess what? There's no conditions for you to be loved. You just loved. Period. And man, how freeing is that? So now I don't have to be a manager of who's meeting the conditions, who's holding up the rules, who's doing things right, who's doing things, you know, it's the whole trick. I mean, Adam in the garden, what caused the fall of man? Eating from the knowledge of good and evil, right and wrong, what's right, what's wrong, all this stuff, conditions, all that. It's totally the wrong tree.
My viewers, believer or non-believer, hear that message and know that's what I have gotten a hold of, then they'll understand my ideology a lot better. They'll understand everything about my life better, how I train better. You know, all the questions and comments they'll just know, you know, because it kind of, not to say it hasn't, I always can portray that. There was years that you knew me that I exuded that and I was right on top of it, and then there was years that, you know, the demons get in and mental depression and mental anguish and you know, just like you were talking about last night, you know, the conditions of the life that I'm living I've let defeat me, you know, emotionally, or feel defeated anyway, when that's really who I am, you know, and I'm trying to stay there for change all the time.
Well, it heals you. You know, love heals you, and we all need healed. I mean, we've all lived life. We've all heartache, and we've all experienced hell in some form or fashion. And love really heals you, and it doesn't necessarily happen immediately. It's you know, it can be a process, and the more healed you become, you know, the saying is, hurt people hurt people. Hurt people interact with people, hurt people interact with all of creation, and that's what you're operating out of. Well, if hurt people, then how much more true is it for the positive side of it, the life side of it, as healed people?
Yeah.
So I used to be a hurt person before I encountered what real love is. I was a hurt person.
The camera mic actually went out right here, guys, so sorry about that. But what Jason said was, when I was a hurt person, I trained horses.
Now that I'm a healed person, I train horses. And so a healed person interacts with everything in a different way than a hurt person. And a lot of, you know, this is for your viewers, you can understand the way people react to different things. You experiencing that. There's lots of opinions out there, and people have reactions of some of the things you do. So those people's reactions are a product of where they are in all of that. Hurt people have hurt reactions. Healed people have healed reactions, you know. And so I would say whatever it takes for people to just get healed, instead of figuring out a way to navigate through being hurt all of life. You know, my philosophy is not, let's be Christian and believe in Jesus so I can get to heaven someday. Let's find out who this Jesus is and what he's about so that I can experience heaven now and start having a difference in my life, and that I can don't have to wait till someday yonder to be healed and to improve and to grow and to become something that makes the world better, that makes everything I encounter better. These horses are better. And, you know, there's no way to pay. You know, I ride horses for people. It's what I do for a day job, you know. And so there's no, and people don't even realize this, but there's no way that compensation can even have a part in, okay, you bring a horse here and there's a healed guy training your horse. You know, what's that worth? What's that being portrayed into your horse? What is that? I mean, what's the power of that? It's incredible. There's no way to even value it with money, you know. And so I just say, let's all just get healed, and our relationships with each other will be way better. And even if you don't agree with somebody, it's like, you know what, so what? We're not in the same places on everything, so what? We're all on a journey. We're all going forward. We're all trying to make it through this thing called life. It's a gift, and man, let's not waste it. Let's not just figure out how to manage our hurts. Let's just get healed and let all that stuff go and become who we were created to be and make the world a better place. I mean, it's what love is. Love is, at the cost of me, I want your life to be better, even if it costs me. You know, Jesus would say this is love, that a man lay down his life for somebody else. So if I say, you know what, I want your life to be better, even if it costs me. Man, that's love. Now, who encounters that? You know, who has hurts that are healed by actually encountering somebody that'll say, you know what, let me have them. I see people healed physically all the time, you know, and maybe that's a controversial deal, whatever, but I get to see people healed physically all the time. And a lot of the time it can happen as I see people in town or wherever. You can go be at Walmart or whatever, and here's a guy with whatever going on, you know, and I just say this, can I have it? You know, I've seen a guy he had a bad cold cough. He'd had this chronic cough for a long time, couldn't get over it and all that, and there he is telling me about it, you know. And so I just said, can I have it? You know, he's like, you know, confused, or nobody's ever talks like that, or it's usually, well, somebody'd say, well, I'll pray for you or something, whatever that means. And it's like, nah, can I have it? Let me have it. I'll take it from you. You know, and not that this is said, but it's kind of like, you mean you, a total stranger, would take this so that I wouldn't have to have it, but you'd have it? Yeah, let me have it. So he says, well, all right, and he gives me a big hug. And so he hunts me down online somehow. I don't even know how he knew who I was or anything. He hunted me down and sent me a message saying, I don't know what you did, but I'm well. And it's like, love, man, it's love. It's the power of love. And we overuse the word a lot, but it's like encountering that is a rare thing now. I say this whole journey for me is to discover what love is, the power of love, and how do I expose the world to it.
If you want to hear more of Jason, you can find him on YouTube and on Podbean at Cowboy Logic and on Facebook at Southern Range Cowboy Church. If you want to get a hold of Jason for training, you can find him on Facebook at Y Down Ranch. And of course, you'll find all those links in the description of this video. Really quick, we wanted to give Jason's daughter a shout out. She has a leather crafting business she's starting. As you can see, she has a lot of really cute items. The hair clips, I love the hair clips. If you want to see more of her work and check out her items, you can find her on Facebook at MZ Tooling. Thank you so much for watching, and we sure hope you enjoyed this little bit of a different episode. We'll talk to you guys next time. God bless you all.